Okay, we are live. We are live. Mic check. Mic check. Okay. Hmm. Okay. What a time. What a time to be alive. I pray everyone is doing well and in good health. Good health mentally, good health physically, spiritually, all around in good health. We know that the environment that we're collectively conditioned to isn't very healthy. So I pray you're being as healthy as humanly possible. Okay. So I'd like to welcome you to today's meeting. We are live on Instagram at Abu Gaddafi and live on YouTube at Abu Gaddafi. My name is Brother Fatan Bey. Um, for those who don't know, so let us begin. We open up in the name of Allah, who appeared in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, to whom we forever and ever give praise and thanks for raising a divine leader, teacher, guide, and perhaps most importantly, an example to the original man in the person of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad. In these two great and holy names, I greet the brothers and the sisters in the universal understanding of peace, understanding that which is a result from knowledge and wisdom, the universal understanding of peace. Assalamu alaikum. For those who of us who are maybe unfamiliar with Assalamu alaikum, which at this day and time, I don't think anybody should be unfamiliar. Even in the rap songs, you got even unrighteous rap says a little bit of something about some assalamu alaikum. But for those of us who may not be exposed to that or don't have any clue of what assalamu alaikum means, it simply just means in English, may peace be with you. All throughout the Bible, every prophet from God did not speak English except the most honorable Elijah Muhammad greeted one another with peace. Doesn't matter what they uh, taught in content, they all greeted in peace. So we just continue down that lineage of greeting each other in peace. None of them spoke English. So the Bible was written in Hebrew, original text also in Aramaic. Jesus also spoke Aramaic and Arabic as well as Hebrew. Uh, Therefore, by greeting in peace, he would have said, Assalamu alaikum, may peace be with you. So nothing too unfamiliar. Uh, for my local folk, aloha, same thing, same thing. Okay. Um, so yes, today's title, Trump's assassination attempt. Um, is getting real. It's getting real. So first, before we even do anything, I want to say to Allah, God, give me the wisdom to do the thing you put me on this earth to do in a way that pleases you and serves the people you put me here to serve. You know, when it comes to truth, everything ain't for everybody. I have to come to terms with that. I think things will be made more clear as we continue on today's broadcast, today's message, especially in an invincible truth. Everything ain't for everybody. We have to come to terms with that. Um, so, those of you who I am made to serve, I just pray for the wisdom to be able to do so. You know, and that's at this moment in time is me and my family. You know, that's that's it. That's uh, yeah. So, with that being said, let us continue. Let's get into it. So, yes, uh, I know that the news is trending. Somebody had made an attempt on former President Donald Trump's life. I want to be very clear. My purpose is not. I'm not a news broadcaster. So some people may be wondering, maybe perhaps if you're even thinking about it, why I haven't said anything about it previously. Um, that's not my intent. Is to be uh, up front and foremost and running with the information and sharing information. That's not my intent. In our general orders, it says, "Talk to no one except or excuse me, to speak only in the line of duty." So certain messages should only be in the lines of duty, and certain people that sharing of information falls right along a line in their line of duty. And so, you know, we should allow people to submit to the instructions or the purpose of their lives. That's not mine. I do, however, want to remind us of the first instruction that in the Bible where it says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God and all its righteousness." Seek ye first the kingdom of God and all its righteousness. And so the purpose is for us to elevate our thinking from transitioning out of consumers into the thinking of producers, transition outside of citizens subject to rulership and transition into royalty subject to rulership. That is the purpose of the teachings of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. He didn't say he came to make any followers. Um, we are well aware of the intended result of his teachings. However, we have yet to bear witness to the full fruition of his teachings. And so that's what brings us here today, is to continue, not add to, not take away from. We don't need nothing new. Um, you just submit and make sure that it's right. We're scientists who are made to experiment, and the teachings of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad have already been tested, and they have withstand and continue to withstand as long as they are right and exact without adding to and taking away from. They are have the ability and capacity to withstand the test of time. And so that's where we want to transition ourselves and be right in line with that. There's so much wisdom and eternal life in these life-giving teachings that, just like in the lessons, how it says, how do you get devil? You get devil by grafting from original. Anytime you want to try to take from or add to, doesn't matter the intent of doing it, the result is a devilish result. Even in mathematics, when you have a graph, you know, those of us who uh, graduated high school or spent time in, the public school systems, we should be familiar with the graph where you have the vertical and the horizontal. And so, those of us in finances and science, we should be familiar in engineering, familiar with graphs. And so, if you have a starting point and an end point, doesn't matter about the amount of time. Let's say, so for example, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad came, and if we were to not graft, graph, if we were to establish a graph, a mathematical graph of the uh, establishment of his teachings, that which is not made to take away from or add to, and we were to graph out on a linear scale, and then we were to do our best to submit to that teaching along the graph. Any slight addition or subtraction, uh, also known in mathematics called deviation, any slight, doesn't matter the beginning, any along the side of any graph, if you allow enough time to pass, the deviation becomes more and more clear over time. And the more time has passed, the likelihood or the impossibility of getting back on track becomes wider. So, of course, no one is perfect. Even the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad himself was not perfect. He was made to deliver a message, and that message has been delivered. So, the the intent is to submit as closely as possible to those teachings that we can so we can produce a pure and holy result. Okay. So with that being said, um, now that that has been established, uh, I want to address the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, on former President Donald Trump. Um, with that assassination attempt, there has been so much confusion uh, associated with the attempt on his life. There's been so much confusion. Um, and so, just like in previous messages, when we have a single object, call it junk, we want to dissect the junk into parts and pieces so that we can have a clarity and better understanding. And so, real quickly, I want to say, when it comes to this, I don't know the truth of the matter, so I'm not going to. I'm not going to front and flake and fake like I know the truth. I don't know. I will say that there are three separate perspectives that are important. And so taking a look at the three separate perspectives, it will give us more clarity. So the first perspective, um, from the Republicans, is that somebody tried to kill this man. And so something that we have to keep in mind that is, uh, these people who are taking it very seriously are ready, willing, and able to come up in arms. They are, if you listen to their conversation, they will uh, basically get ready to kill people. You know, they're ready. Then you have the Democrats, uh, who, or maybe not label them Democrats, but people who think that it's a fake, that it's phony, that it's a ploy from Trump, that he was able to stage it. And then you have another perspective. You have another perspective of people who believe that it's, that he deserves to die, that he he'd be better off not living. And I think that's more along the lines of the Democratic perspective that, I've heard that, oh, I just wish that it was a little bit, the bullet was a little bit, couple of inches to the right. And I don't think people are really aware of what that would mean. For one, it is a human being. So it just goes to show how desensitized we have become collectively to people dying to death, you know? Um, doesn't matter where in the world, people are dying and we've become totally desensitized. And so without becoming so attached to in being in the middle of it, I think that's where the confusion is because we associate with the events, we associate with it. I think that the perspective that is important to take along the lines of rulership is not to look at it as if we are United States citizens, but rather take the perspective as if we are collectively, those of us who don't identify with being American, look at it as if we are from another country because that is the end result. What we want is to reverse engineer the process of separation. That's the only solution that we have. And so, because separation is the according to the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, separation is not only the best, but the only solution that we have for us original, indigenous, and native people, aboriginal people of the planet Earth, to separate ourselves from the American system, the United States system. So that's the perspective that we should look at this and understand that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it was real, if it was staged, if Trump manufactured it on its own. Real briefly, I want to say that part of the reason why so many people have jumped to the conclusion that it was fake or staged, it shows the condition of the collective American public. For one, it's it shows how desensitized we're so used to things being made up and staged and fake that everything becomes fake. But what it also shows is a level of ignorance, and they call it naivete or being naive to world matters, to actual true and living politics, where politicians, people in government have been and still are murdered, and they are assassination attempts. It's not very far from today in the past where politicians have been murdered. I mean, you have things like this, leaders being murdered. I mean, murder is very real. So the idea that it's fake, it continue because these things can't be proven, it helps to desensitize. And I don't think that's the that is not the path that we should take. We should not just brush things off as if it is staged or faked. Simply, again, we're speaking from as if we are another country because that's the end result. We are a people on ourselves, amongst ourselves, striving for governance on along our own self. That the result, desired result, doesn't is not dependent on whether it was staged or not. Because there's only two ways to go about it. Either he would have died, right? And then it would have been up in civil war. Are we ready for that? Are we collectively ready? Teaching the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, we don't get involved. That has nothing to do with us. Republican, Democrat. You're gonna get if you are involved, you're gonna get caught in the crossfires. Those of us who submit to the teaching of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's not for us. Our solution is separation. And it's hard. It is very Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches that the 100% dissatisfaction brings about 100% change. So if we are not 100% dissatisfied with the conditions that we're in, we only will make fractions of change because we're only partially dissatisfied. So we have to become so dissatisfied with ourselves and our environment that we be willing to change 100%, not fractionally and not partially change, because then we'll become comfortable in our situations and our circumstances. We'll become comfortable with the uh, partial changes that are made, and then be stuck in between a fight that has nothing that is not intended for our demise. This fight has everything to do with the black man and the original man on the face of the planet. It has everything to do with us because the time has come where Malcolm X said, "Chickens come home to roost." And I'm not saying that that's what's going on with Trump. I don't know. That's not my intent in the video to state that. But what I am saying is the intended result. Whether Donald Trump was to be murdered and it'd be a civil war, that concept of the Americans destroying one another is because America has not made right with us being their former slaves and has not made right with the wickedness and devilishment that they have caused destruction and death across the planet. You cannot, I mean, that's just mathematics. You cannot, karma can be broken down too on a quantum level, on an atomic level. So it's not so spooky to be like, oh, if you can break things down on a scientific level, whatever you do on one side, you have to do on the other, which is mathematics. You cannot have a group of people who have, for their from their inception being on the planet, has caused nothing but death and destruction everywhere, and they left death and destruction in their wake everywhere they went. It's only a matter of time till that comes knocking on their doorstep. And so the key here is to not fall victim to the same uh, karma or cause and effect, as we say in Islam, is cause and effect. We don't want to fall victim to the effect that wasn't our cause. It has everything to do with the fact that they didn't make right by us and original people across the planet. That's has everything to do with that fact. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to participate in the fighting, because a civil war is only it's only inevitable. It's a necessity. The Republican people party, if you listen to their language, they are ready to be up in arms. They're training for this day. They don't agree with the same things that the Democrats are talking about when it comes to the LGBT communities and the trans communities and things like that. The key here for us who follow the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, understanding that this is a spiritual warfare, is we don't agree with the unrighteousness and the devilishness, but we don't participate in a armed warfare. That's not our job description. That's not our purpose and our duty. Our duty is to separate, is to take a step back and understand that this has nothing. Our quote unquote dog is not in that fight, or our God is not in that fight. You allow them to do what they feel is necessary, as long as we don't get caught up into their fight. It's just mathematics and science at the end of the day when you take a look at it and you understand, because it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time until, like they say, a powder keg and it blows up. And when you have something blow up, you don't want to be in that vicinity. You don't want to be in the vicinity of things blowing up. And like the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches, 100% dissatisfaction brings about 100% change. So we have to begin to be dissatisfied with the things that are going on, and we have to be able to submit to a proper plan. They say proper planning prevents poor performance. And so if we look at our environment and we say there's some type of poor performance that's happening, we have to be able to come to terms with some proper planning. And that's the uh, title, the purpose that of this meeting today is we want to get into some proper planning. Um, but I do want to take a moment to address the emotional aspect of where we are today. You know, there's been so much going on in the world, whether it be people dying in Pakistan, I mean, excuse me, in Palestine by the hands of the Israelis. We have murders and deaths. There's so much death going on every day, uh, whether it be uh, murder or suicide or terrorism. There's so much going on, and we become so desensitized collectively. I understand the need for being desensitized for in terms of being able to continue to move on with our day. It's important to not get caught up into our emotions so that we can make decisions, because emotions and excitement lead away the mind. But I do want to address the fact that this is not only is a heavy time with a lot of things going on, but it pulls at our emotions. And what it's doing is it's stunting our ability to make effective decisions. It's stunting our ability to make effective decisions, because it's stunting our ability to think logically. We're getting caught in so many different things that are happening that are pulling at our emotional heartstrings, whether it become murder, and we have, the attack on our children, and we've got just so many things going on that, and I don't want to keep going into it, because what it does is it could trigger some people. But the truth of the matter is that we're faced with so many things that are pulling at us, and the only thing that we've been conditioned to do is become desensitized. Well, I don't care. That ain't got nothing to do with me, and then we only are allowed to feel deeply for things that the public and the media is allowing us to feel deeply for. You know, the Palestinians have been getting murdered for years, I believe since the 1940s. And those of us in the Muslim community are well aware of the terrorism that Israel has caused to these people, but only now that the media, the collective people, have been making it so widespread, we are collectively allowed to feel deeply for these people. Every single day, we walk past homelessness and starvation and drug addiction and poverty and alcoholism and prostitution and all these different forms of wickedness that we've become desensitized to, that it no longer has the effect. But if you can imagine, if we lived in a different world or a different reality where these things didn't exist, it would traumatize us. And that's not healthy. It's not healthy to be desensitized to wickedness, because then the devil wins. The What we have to do is separate and remove ourselves from this world of wickedness and establish a place of peace and no longer allow wickedness to have control. And the only way to do that is to separate ourselves. I know we all seen the picture where, you know, there's a table and the wicked people are having like a poker game on the top of the table, and then you have the original people and the poor people on the bottom. And the label of the picture just says, all we got to do is stand up and it's game over. And that's the truth. We have to realize the leverage that we collectively have and stop participating. You know, it's the it's part of the system that develops these rules for us to stick by. That's why it's important for us to understand that this is a divine problem and requires a divine solution. Because if we look at it from any other angle, we're only subjected to the rules that the quote unquote system of white supremacy has already established for us. I'll give you an example. If we look at not our if we don't look at our problem as a divine problem, but we look at it as a political problem, and I'm talking of politics, meaning the United States politics, not the politics that we defined last week. But if we look at it from a local political, say it's a local political problem, then that means we're subjected to the laws of politics that the United States system has instituted. So it doesn't give us freedom to make decisions. If we look at it from a economic problem, then that means we're subjected to the laws of the business world. If we look at it from a nonprofit or a philanthropist perspective, then we're subjected to the rules and the regulations of philanthropy. Well, the Most High Elijah Muhammad taught us that this is a divine problem. So the only laws that we are subjected to are the laws that Allah God, the Most High God, has instilled for us. And when we look at the problems that the whole entire world, not even just in our environment, but the entire planet is facing, it can trace back to laws that are not that we are not adhering to or submitting to. And when we listen to the public, obviously the public is misguided, but they say, "Oh, religion is a tool to enslave," and this, that, and the third. Certain aspects of that has been true in terms of how it's been used, but we can understand that in this day and time, somebody's got to be sticking to some type of divine laws. We can go through every single problem. We will go through every single problem and trace it back to some law that's already been designed by God in the scripture to show how if we stuck to that law in particular, we would not be faced with that problem. But we've uh, traveled so far away from God's law that now we're stuck. Remember, we talked about the graph. We've deviated so far from the right path that it's very difficult to get back. So I want to address the fears and the trauma that are around these events that are happening. I can understand how fearful and scary these times are. It's a scary time. And so the first thing that we do is become desensitized. Whether it be, oh man, I wish that they would have hit him. I wish that bullet would have got him. You know, if we say that, then what happens to the effect that would have been caused? What about all his very extreme supporters who have been up in arms? And they just come down, run, they storm the White House. What is it? Regular people. What are we to them? We're disunified, and we are subjected to a lot of the same ailments that other countries are subjected to. And so what if it is fake? What if it is? Have we become so desensitized to violence that the first thing that comes to mind is that it's fake? It still has the same effect that it would have, because now Trump is a superstar. These are different perspectives that have already been established. And so I don't want to keep re repeating the same perspectives that have already been established. I do want us to remember, because a reminder is good for the believers. I want us to remember the stance that we are meant to take is from separation. Let's look at it as if remember we spoke on reverse engineer. Let's look at it as if our country has already been established. It's already established. So therefore we can look at it from an elevated perspective. We don't have to participate in the day to day. We have to start elevating our thinking and proper planning. So I want to get into first the Holy Quran in chapter 10, verse 26. Chapter 10 is Jonah. Chapter 10, verse 26. Last week we spoke on when all else fails, let's experiment with Islam. All else has failed except Islam. Islam has not failed us. Many of us who call ourselves Muslims, maybe perhaps we have failed Islam, and I'm not exempt from that. But Islam has never failed us. And so if not now, when? So here it says in Holy Quran, I'm going to just read chapter 10, Jonah, verse 25 and 26. And it says, and Allah invites to the abode. In other translation, it says the house. And Allah invites to the house of peace and guides whom he pleases to the right path. For those who do good is good reward more than this. For those who do good is good rewarded more than this. So that means you're rewarded more than the good that you choose to do. That's how Islam operates. And that's just science, how we spoke on before. If you're going to travel the earth and do destruction and death and devilishment, do not be surprised if destruction, death, and devilishment come knocking at your door. So it's not for us to chase them after them and try to destroy them with destruction. It's for us to separate and do righteousness. So for those who do good is good reward, and more than this, neither blackness nor ignominy will cover their faces, meaning they won't be stressed out. They won't be suffering from anxiety and grief and all the ailments that we currently are facing. Remember, we spoke on drunkenness and drug abuse and domestic violence, murder and robbery. These are all things that we're already currently facing. We're currently facing that. And so we have to become 100% dissatisfied with those conditions, and which brings about 100% change. And we can find ourselves submitting to Islam, submitting to peace. So we don't have to be faced with those conditions. We want to live in a beautiful world. Don't you want to live in a world where you don't have to worry about where your children are, the drugs that your children are facing? Don't you want to live in a world where you don't have to come outside and see homelessness? Don't you want to live in a world where you can know that your food is not poison? Don't you want to live in a world where you don't have to worry about people stealing your things or people taking advantage? We want to live in a beautiful world, so we have to learn to do beautiful things. And we have to be able to acknowledge when people are not living righteous and separate from them. Just like what we see in the United States, these people are not living in a righteous fashion, so that we can see that their actions are bringing their own destruction, and we don't want to participate. Why should we have to fall victim to their actions when we never wanted it? That doesn't make any sense. I never wanted to participate. I never signed up for that. They brought that to our front door. They started knocking on our front door with that. Why should we have to fall victim to the same things? That doesn't make sense. It says, "These are the owners of the garden, therein they will abide." Don't we want to live in a beautiful garden where we don't have to worry about the same things that are going on? And it's only a matter of time. We have to get to work and establish these things. You know, it says in the Bible, the kingdom will be reestablished. Reestablished. Whenever you do something that means it's already been in existence at one point in time. So it's for us to acknowledge the fact that this righteous lifestyle has already been established. And it's for us to, like the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches, accept our own and be ourselves. Once we accept our own, then we can get to work to reestablish a righteous world. We spend far too much time trying to get along with an unrighteous and wicked world when all we have to do is separate and establish our own world and reestablish our own world. There are groups of people who are familiar. This is why the teaching of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, according to the Bible, that the kingdom of heaven is likened to a a shepherd who one sheep has left the 99. We collectively are that 100 sheep, with Allah God being the divine shepherd, the good shepherd. One sheep lost its way, and so God had to come himself and come and raise us up in the hills of North America and find. That's why the so-called Negroes in America are called the lost found. So once we were lost, now we are found, and we have to accept our own and be amongst the 99 other sheep. We can tell just by sheer example and observation that the time that it took for Allah God to find us who were once lost and get and raise up the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad to teach us, in that amount of time, the other 99 have also lost their way across the planet. This is why we were taught in our lessons what is the total population of the original nation in the wilderness of North America and all over the planet Earth. Not just the wilderness of North America. What is the total population of the original nation in the wilderness of North America, meaning where we were lost, and all over the planet Earth? All over the planet Earth. So meanwhile, we were being raised in the hills of North America. The rest of the original nation on the rest of the planet, all over the planet Earth, have also strayed and lost their way. So since we are considering ourselves, those of us who are the original man, if we ask who is the original man, and we have the answer and we can identify with who is the original man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, and the God of the universe, well, though it's for us to take responsibility, raise up, since we are now known, we were once known as lost and now are found. I was once lost and now found. It is for us to take responsibility and assist the original nation all over the planet Earth. That in that way, we will no longer be subject to the destruction that is prescribed and prophesied for the devil in the hills of North America and all over the planet Earth. Just like we were asked in our lessons, what is the population of the original nation in the wilderness of North America and all over the planet Earth, we were also asked what is the population of the colored man in the hills of North America and all over the planet Earth. So these questions have already been established. They're not just questions to get us quote unquote thinking. They were questions to establish a way of thought, a way of living, and instructions for us to submit to. It says instructions. These are our instructions, not added to, not taken away from. These are the instructions that we need so that we can assist with the raising up mentally, spiritually, and physically, not only ourselves, our environment, but across the planet. It's for us to be able to, the world is waiting for us to be able to stand up and help. We don't have the leverage and or the capacity at this moment to even help ourselves. But the world is waiting. If we're the lost found, we've been found after being lost. The rest of the planet is also been lost. So they're waiting for us to stand up so that we can all be not only just the 99 and the one, but we can be 100 once again. And that's according to the teachings of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. That's according to the teachings in the Holy Quran. We are looking for the straight path. You know, it's interesting. Somebody who was teaching on the Bible, they were saying in the story of Moses, when Allah split the Red Sea, somebody was saying that Allah didn't remove the sea, he just made a way through it. And I thought that was so profound and applicable in our lives. We're faced with so many things that we could drown in, whether it be in our personal lives, whether it be we drowning in debt, drowning in stress, drowning in responsibilities. We could be drowning in so many different things in our lives. And in the Bible, God doesn't remove completely those things that were causing, or that water, that sea, that thing that could have caused that death. He made a way through it. And so that is a divine solution for us who submit to the teachings, who submit to Islam, who submit to peace, who want freedom, justice, and equality. We want harmony and peace. These things are not going to be completely removed. We have to continue to make steps towards that right path, and Allah, God, will make a way through them as he has done in the past. That's something that the Holy Quran says, travel the earth and see. You can travel and look back into the past, into history, and you can see what God has done for people who were stuck in similar situations. God made a way for them. And so that's for us as well. God has and is made to make a way for us through this circumstances. We don't want to get like how Pharaoh got swept up in the sea behind when the original people were separating from Pharaoh. We don't want to get wrapped up into his destruction. We have to be able to continue. Like I said, proper planning prevents poor performance. We have to get into some proper planning. So before we get into an invincible truth, I want to go into a plan I was Allah assisted in establishing according to the teachings of Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the message to the black man in terms of pooling resources, and in theology of time, wherein the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad informed us, instructed us that there is support in the Isles of the Pacific. So with that framework being in mind, I was able to, with the help of Almighty God Allah, establish just a small aspect, a small tool, and get this plan on paper. And I was working with a brother to establish this, bring it into fruition. I'm not too sure where he is at this moment on this plan, but it doesn't take away from the effect of the plan. And so if anybody is in need of a plan, um, this may help. And so this is a plan to establish a construction company. And so part of the philosophy that I live by, according to the teaching of Most High Elijah Muhammad, is 100% independence. We want freedom. We want freedom. And so a lot of the things that when you live in the states, uh, no matter how much you strive, it's very difficult to be free completely, 100%. When you turn on your water, you many of us don't know where the water comes from, or when we turn on our electricity, we're dependent on the electric company. You can see it on the bills that we pay. It says uh on the bill you paying a water bill, and then on your electric bill you paying the electric bill. So that means at any time somebody can cut that off. If you don't pay that bill, they will cut it off. If you don't pay the water bill, they'll cut your water off. If you don't pay the electric bill, they cut your electricity off. We're working at a job. If you don't do what you need to do, they'll cut you off and fire you. And same thing goes with the poison that's being sold in the grocery stores. So we're stuck in an environment that is not really designed for our success, and it's not really designed for freedom. So one of the instructions that Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us was there is support and assistance in the Isles of the Pacific. He specifically said New Zealand. And one of the things here, I'm on an island in the Pacific. One of the things here that we're working towards is complete independence. So when I turn on my water, I know exactly where the water is coming from. We collect it from the rain. If I was to say that I am dependent on the rain, it sounds spooky, but it's real. That is real. One of the first things in warfare, biological warfare, historically speaking, is, and we could take a look at Flint, Michigan, is they will affect the water source. And they have no desire, no intent to fix it. We still can look up Flint, Michigan, and see that they're in the same condition today as they were when their water was poisoned. And so these things that are happening are uh, these things that are happening are divine warnings to let us know that it's time for us to make some decisions. Sister here, I think it's very important to speak on, and I want to do a question and answer at the end, but I do want to speak on it. It says here, it's illegal to collect the rain in many parts of the states. There's a book. I don't have it on me. It's in my truck. This is the industry that I'm in is rainwater harvesting. It's the industry that I'm in. It's the seed of independence. Once you have control of your water, you can begin to control other areas and aspects of your life. And there's a list. There are some states that it is illegal to collect rainwater, but there are other things that are illegal as well. And so it's up to us to research and find out, is it illegal in the state that you're in? And if it is, it's, like we spoke on before, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches 100% dissatisfaction brings about 100% change. And so when you're 100% dissatisfied with your environment, when you're 100% dissatisfied with the conditions that you're subjected to, then you are willing to make 100% change. Now, that change is different for each person. Sometimes they want to, just generate power and influence in their environment. That's 100%. Sometimes people want to leave and go to places that are more suitable for the human being, where we're more righteous living and we have cleaner air, cleaner water, cleaner foods. That is more along the lines of what the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad is teaching. And so the next step is to, once you have independent from your water source, because that is something that can be turned off or poisoned. They're putting fluoride in the water, and which affects our pineal gland. It calcifies our third eye, so we no longer have spiritual connection with our environment. We no longer have access to our spiritual thought, and ruins our intuition and makes us easier controlled. So once we can begin to separate, think of ourselves like the Bible says, think of ourselves as a vessel of God, a kingdom of God, then we should be able to be, and understand and not being landlocked to the decisions that we make. We must be able to decide that we no longer want to be subjected to that environment. And reminding you that at the beginning of the message, everything ain't for everybody. So this particular plan that Allah God had assisted me in establishing is only one tiny aspect of completely freeing one person and their family. If we can start with an individual and their family, and then those families continue to work together, nobody is left as a um as a weakness. Nobody is left as a loose end, or nobody is left as a liability. We all become assets. Right now in America, in the United States, it's all individualism. Every individual is out for themselves, and we're separated. If we can begin to come together and unify, at least as a family, then we have families to assist each other on a familial level, and we come together as families, then we can completely become independent 100%, 360 degrees. It's easy for somebody to be free, but they'll never be completely free, because they'll always have people who are dependent on them, and they're not able to make decisions for themselves that will affect other people. So plan, just a small little tiny aspect of the plan that Allah God was in the person of Master Prophet Muhammad assisted me in establishing. It starts on an individual level. We can choose one person, and it works. It's been tested. It works. Um, this is any area of labor, whether it be the uh, whether it be it's in terms of construction, whether it be carpentry, whether it be electrician or plumbing, any area, whether it be a mechanic, any area of the labor force should be the starting point of independence. Why? Well, because if everything were to go bad today, those of us with hard skills, the ability to fix, we are the ones who will be most useful in our community. It's not going to be the people who, you know, I don't know. I don't want to disrespect anybody's position in society, but I will say that those of us who have the ability to fix and hands on and have skills that are useful, we are going to be the most valuable people in any environment. And so we should invest ourselves in gathering those skills so that we are useful to ourselves, our family, in our homes or in our environments, and then collectively become useful. So that's where we begin in gathering those skills. Because if, a lot of these people in the social media environment, social media, they call it SHTF, when shit, excuse my language, hits the fan. That's what the most of them are Republicans who are preparing themselves for an inevitable civil war. That is the terminology that is used when, excuse my language, shit hits the fan. So that's the term that they use, and we know them as preppers. They're preparing for something. Well, the main economy that will be available to us if things go bad will be bartering, will be trading of services. And so in order to be valuable in that type of environment, you have to be useful. I don't care what you know, what can you do? That's what's most valuable. In that type of situation, it don't matter how much you can quote and know. It's what can you do? Show and prove. This is why, just a brief side note, this is why I don't really just teach my children, oh, you God. Even though the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said whenever you look at the black man, you're looking at God. I think we should probably delve more deeply into that context of what made him say that. But the reason being is because I understand that form follows function. So if I just tell them, you God, you God, you God, what will happen in the mind of a child is they'll make mistakes and then justify those mistakes with, well, I'm God. God can make mistakes. And then they'll just say that, well, it was that was just a godly mistake, rather than learning from the mistake. Whereas if I can teach them that the function of God, force and power, being able to take advantage of your uh, environment, take no, not take advantage, but being able to uplift your environment, take control over the things that we are dependent on, and understanding the teachings of the Most High Elijah Muhammad. If we can be aligned in those teachings, then the form will follow the function. The form is more important than, excuse me, the function is more important than focusing on the form, because the function, once submitting to the function, the form is inevitable. If we just focusing on the form, then we'll just have empty vessels. You just have people that look really good but have no practical function in society. And so if we start to look at where things could go if there were some type of civil war, we'd have a lot of forms that look like they're valuable, but when it comes to their practical function, they're useless. So getting back to this, if you're anything like me, whenever you hear teachings and maybe you go into YouTube and you watch videos, if you're anything like me, I don't watch videos for entertainment. Like, I do watch movies, with my family. I watch movies, but if I'm watching a video or teachings, I'm seeking for the most practical and functional wisdom that can be applied. I'm not really looking to be entertained with beautiful teachings and, oh, that sounds really good and I want to be inspired. I'm not looking for inspiration. I'm looking for instruction. If you're anything like me, we no longer need inspirational and motivational speakers. If you're anything like me, we're looking for instructional leadership and instructional command. And so when I read these teachings, Islam especially is very practical. Islam is very practical, and it's solution oriented, and it's a way of life that is made for every single human being on the face of the planet Earth. It's made, our very nature is to submit to Islam. And once we submit to Islam, solutions will be made very clear. So in seeking of freedom, freedom is the first thing that we want. We understand the importance of establishing freedom in our mind. It's very difficult to be free in your mind and still be subjected to the chains and dependency. And so the key here is to become dependent on God alone, but also become independent from this system that is not made for us. So if we can become independent as an individual, like I said, it begins with understanding where our water comes from, beginning to understand where our electricity is coming from, our foods are coming from, our education. Where are these things coming from? If we can understand that we're surrounded in this environment and we're dependent on in these different areas, we're dependent on the city and county when it comes to water. We're dependent on the city and county we're dependent on the city and county grid when it comes to electricity. We're dependent on the city and the state when it comes to our education. We're dependent on the grocery stores when it comes to our foods. Then we can start to attack these different levels of dependency. And we can say, you know what? No longer do I want to be dependent on the system when it comes to water. I'm going to begin to either research or move out of that environment. You can come where I am, and we'll teach you how to become independent when it comes to your water. I am dependent on Allah when it comes to water in a real way, dependent on Allah when it comes to water, because I collect the rainwater and the rain falls on the roof and we collect the rainwater, and that's how we get our water. And the next step is to be dependent on Allah when it comes to our electricity. We're dependent on the sun. God put the sun in the sky. And so if we're no longer dependent on the fossil fuels and the oil that comes from the earth, and then dependent on those companies that are pulling those resources from the earth, making us subjected and dependent on their leadership, we can become independent on within our own selves, and rely on the power of Allah to shine the sun, and we collect that uh, the energy from the sun. Then we can continue to move forward when it comes to the foods that we eat and the education that we are teaching our children and ourselves. These are things that we can become independent of overnight if we have proper planning. When we look at it all completely at the same time, it becomes overwhelming. But in our prayers, it says, "Oh Allah, I seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief." If we can understand and ask Allah to be uh, saved from anxiety, anxiety is an overwhelming feeling of emotions and not having the ability to make a decision. We become what's called paralyzed. We have paralysis when it comes to making decisions. And when you are paralyzed in making decisions, that means you can do nothing. When you are faced with so many different stressors and anxiety, you don't have the capacity to make any type of healthy decision, so you become paralyzed. Well, that's why when we pray to God, we say, "Oh Allah, I seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief." Grief is the feeling we have of loss. When we lose something or someone, is that emotions that we're faced with. And grief is another thing that causes us to have paralysis. We don't have the ability to make a decision. So things that happen in our environment, whether we are seeing a former president getting shot, whether we see people in Palestine getting murdered, whether we look in our environment in the neighborhoods and we're losing our young men and young children, and we're losing family members who are close to us. Young men are committing suicide at ridiculous rates. These are all things that causes us grief, and it inhibits or prevents us from making healthy decisions. We have paralysis. We're living on autopilot. All I know is go to work, wake up, go to work, pay the bills, get the food. The food is poison that's causing me further paralysis. So we don't have the ability to make decisions for ourselves. And so the key here, part of that proper planning, is to dissect each aspect of everything that we're dependent on in our life, whether it be the water that's coming from the city and county, the electricity when we turn on, we pay the bills, whether it be rent, whether it be the grocery stores. Every aspect that's causing us paralysis needs to be dissected. This is how war is declared. We want to declare war on dependency. We no longer want to be dependent on this system. So what does that look like? Well, you choose something. Like I said, Allah in the person Master Muhammad, Allah, he assisted me into developing this plan to help an individual and a family become independent, and it's working for me, and God willing, it'll work for you. So the first thing is we focus on a strong skill, a skill that will be useful and practical in your community or to your family in a way that uh, if things go bad, will be useful. Like I said, no, if there was a civil war today, if Trump had gotten murdered and there'd be a civil war today, nobody would have cared what you know in terms of knowledge. Nobody cares about your books of Kemet and your crystals and spiritual practices. Don't nobody care about that in a real way. And I'm not being disrespectful. What I'm saying is nobody would care about the things that you say you know. They would want to know, how is it useful to you and your family. And I have a family, and I know how useless those things are in a real way. When the lights turn off, you can't use no crystals to turn the light on. You have to be able to gather the power from the sun, or find some type of generator or things of that nature. These are the things that are important. Hard skills. What can you fix? What has the teachings, what has Islam been able to do for you in a real way? And this is the proper planning that's important. We don't want to be dependent on people to provide those things that we should be have control of over ourselves. How powerful are you if somebody can shut your water off? I don't care who you think you are. If somebody can just shut your water off, you are weak and powerless. If somebody can just shut your electricity off because you're not paying it, we're not as strong as we think we are. And so if we can look at those things and declare war on dependency, we'll be all right. So, what we can continue to do here where I am, we collect water from the rain. So I, in a real way, can say I'm dependent on Allah for our water. We collect the rain. Sister said earlier that in many states it is illegal. It is illegal. We must become 100% dissatisfied because 100% dissatisfaction brings about 100% change. Same thing with electricity. We should do our best to be on solar system so that we're dependent on the sun. So that if somebody decides to cut off the electricity on the grid, we as an individual are not affected. These are things that can be done in a practical way. We can do this step by step. Now, I'm going to go over the different aspects. Remember, proper planning prevents poor performance. So I'm going to go over this little small aspect. This is small component of the plan that Allah has been able to, or has blessed me with being able to articulate. So this is establishing any type of company that will be a pillar in any community. We want real freedom. We don't want a fake and plastic freedom that looks free, but we still dependent. We want to be pillars in the community. You know, Islam is built with 5 pillars. So where are the individuals that are pillars in our communities? Not just people who say stuff. There's a lot of speakers and inspirational speakers and motivational speakers. Where are the pillars with instruction and plans in a real way? And so I want to go over just a little small, tiny aspect of a larger plan in effect. And so this is to establish they call them a labor company. Labor companies are uh, uh, one of the most important aspects of any community. You know, one of the things that makes a difference, one of the things that made a difference in Europe, when the Europeans were in the Dark Ages and they had to been resurrected by the Muslims, the black Moors, the black Muslims had to go in over there and raise them up and bring them out of the Dark Ages into the Age of Enlightenment. One of the things that we as black Muslims established for them was indoor plumbing. They were so sick and so nasty that they would defecate in their home or outside, and they didn't know how to take care of themselves. They would eat the pigs, and the pigs would eat the feces, and they didn't know how to bury their dead. They just live in such a beast life that they needed resurrection and enlightenment from the black Muslims. And one of those things that not only the mathematics and the sciences, but one of those things that the black Muslims was able to help them establish was plumbing, was toilets. Now, today in the United States of America, we look at plumbers as if they call them blue collar workers. They're just the bottom rail of workers, just the worst workers. And that's how they view us. That's how they view Muslims. Is just the worst. We are supposed to be the cream of the planet of those who rise to the top. And so they are able, in this society, this wicked, devilish society, is able to demonize us black Muslims. They make us look like the enemy, the most horrible people on the planet, because we are reminders of how incapable they once were. You know, when you go to Spain and you look at how they tease the black bull with the red sheep, they say toro, 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 and they in Spain, and they do that. And at the end, they do the bull fighting, and they kill the bulls. Well, many people don't know the reason why they do that is because it's a demonstration of their desire to kill the black Muslim. That big, black, dominant black bull is the black Muslim, the black man, the original man on the planet. And they hate us so much for reminding them that they didn't even have mathematics and science. They've been so dependent on the Muslims that every time they look at us, they are reminded of their dependency on what we were able to bring to them. That's why they don't teach that the Europeans got their science and mathematics from us. They don't teach that. They teach that it was Pythagoras. They don't even teach that their scientists, their philosophers spent time in Egypt to get that information. They don't teach where they got that information from. They don't teach that algebra and alchemy is from Arabic. They don't teach that that was originated and established by the Muslims. They should be coming to us. You know, the rest of the world is at. It's time for the rest of the world to go back to the source, go back to the original man and woman on the planet, so that we can understand how can we take care of. It's ego that's stopping the people from coming back to the source and saying, you know what, we all live on this planet together. Why don't we work? And well, you know, we've been running things and it's not working out. For talking about the Europeans, why don't they just say, you know what, it hasn't been working for the last 6,000 years. Whatever we've been doing is not working. Can y'all give us a hand? And we submit. It's too much. Nah, it's too much ego involved. So yeah. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. As you can see, there's a lot of emphasis. Gets me, okay. So this plan, I was, with the help of Almighty God Allah, was able to establish it. This is in January 7th of 2023. I've been working on it for about a year, and then I was able to put it on paper, and I finally got it on paper in January 7th, 2023. And so this is keeping that in mind, that it was the Black Muslims who were made to travel from Morocco to Spain to Europe and bring them out of those dark ages. And that is the mentality that we need to have today in order to save this planet. We have to have that same mindset of the Muslims. The Black Muslims were able to take it upon themselves to travel the earth and spread Islam in a healthy way and solving people's problems. That's what should be on our hearts and our minds. And so it starts with the sciences and mathematics. Those skills that they took out of the public school systems, the hard skills that they knew our youth would have gravitated towards. Our youth, Black men and original men, gravitated more towards the wood shops, the mechanics, the auto mechanics, the plumbing, those hard labors in the schools, and they took that out. And after they took that out, our youth started to begin to fall victim to society, to all the negative aspects in society. And they knew that because we are people that are meant to work with our hands and to create and bring things that are tangible from our minds and bring it into fruition, that they knew that they could drown us out in language. They knew that if they caused us to read books after books after books with no practical application, that we will become so paralyzed and not have any effect in our environment. They knew, because they studied us since for the past 6,000 for at least the 400 years they've been studying us. They knew that when we read, we looked for instructions. And when we got our hands on things, we knew how to innovate. That's why in slavery times, every invention that was made was from a slave. It doesn't make sense. These are the things that we never thought about. Every invention that has been made in America only made work easier. But who got the credit? It was always the slave master that got the credit. It doesn't make sense for a slave master to make work easier for the slave. He's already paying nothing. It's already free labor. So it would be the slave who would say, man, I'm working so hard, I need to find a way to make this easier. So then they would get to innovating. And then because the slave master had control and ownership over the slave, anything the slave did, the slave master just took ownership over, and then he got a patent for it and got paid for it. And so that mind to innovate things in a more practical and a useful way needs to be reestablished. Those are the things that need to be reestablished today. We do a lot of innovation in other areas, but we don't do it in areas that are practical. When it comes to agriculture, agriculture needs to be innovated upon. We need to put our hands on agriculture. We need to put our hands on mechanics. We need to be able to put our hands on on what do you call it? On architecture, on engineering. These are the things that are important that becomes pillars on the globe and pillars on the planet. Everything else is a waste. Everything else is entertainment. Why do we spend so much time becoming pillars in entertainment when we need to be focused more on things that matter? So here is a small example of us utilizing our minds to become pillars in more skilled and practical areas of life. So this one is for specifically for establishing a company, which is should independence should always be our goal. We're reverse engineering. We look at the goal that we want to bring into fruition. We say we want to establish our own, and then we work backwards from there. And so the first step is to apply to a union of labor. There's different areas that we could apply to. We could work together and make sure that we see this coming to fruition. I know that this works because I've seen it. I worked with a brother. Uh, I don't know where he is in terms of continuing this, but I know this works. The first thing that we do is apply to a labor union. Now, there's different areas of labor. We have contractors, the carpentry, electrical, plumbing, any apprenticeship program that will teach us hard skills because we have to have the alphabets. If we want to innovate, we have to be able to learn the basics. Anybody who wants to innovate in any of the areas that are important to any society, whether it be water, electricity, indoor plumbing, architecture, masonry, if we want to innovate, we have to learn the basics. You can't just start it and not understand and think that you're doing something. We're going to trick ourselves to think that we're creating something new when really we're being impractical. We've become so subjected to that. So the next step is to go through it's a 4-year program to become certified in that area. Now, along that lines of 4 years, as we are collecting and we're employed and we're collecting those stubs, what we can do is work on credit so that you can purchase a piece of property. This is with the focus of being independent. You want to have your own home. You want to have your own company, your own business as a family unit so that you can assist other family units. So as you're going through this program and you're establishing these hard skills that you become useful to your family, you become useful to your community, and you become useful to your environment, you have these skills that nobody can take. It doesn't matter what happens in the world, nobody can take these skills from you. So let's say you're learning how to build. If things go bad the way that Republicans are saying they will, and if things go bad the way that Democrats say they will, and if things go bad the way that the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that they're going to go, at least you'll have the skills to be able to provide for your family. Because this dollar is not going to be worth anything if things go bad. So we have to be prepared. And a lot of us don't have the ability to fix anything. We've neglected the ability to fix anything. We've neglected the desire even to fix something. We want the easy and the fast money. That's why we all ended up, I don't say all, that's disrespectful. Many of us got distracted by the entertainment. We got distracted by the sports, and we got distracted by drugs. We got distracted by the music. We forgot to stay focused on what's most important. And I want us to bring that back into focus. What's most important, things that cannot be taken. That's what's real independence. Something that can't be taken. I want freedom and independence. So as we go through this program, it only takes 2 years to pre-qualify. Once you have your pay stub and we're working on your credit, you get a home. Once you have a home, you begin to generate what's called equity. Equity in the home. Now you have what some people could define as a bank. You have real estate. You have real, tangible estate, not something in the digital world, something that you can't touch that can be shut off. It's real. Worst case scenario, you have a place to stay. Best case scenario, you have some type of leverage that you can, something real that gives you value so that you can, if we talk about barter or we talk about having value in the community, you have a shelter, a place where people can lay their heads. Then you become valuable to yourself. You become valuable to your family and your community. So the if it's just one single individual working in this program, after 2 years they get themselves a home. Then if it's a multi-bedroom home, it's just a single person, they could rent out their home, their room. They could rent out a room to somebody else in need. That will bring in a second stream of income. Again, we're working towards independence. So it's not just having a job to pay bills. We're utilizing our minds to plan for freedom and independence and submitting to a program that is backed by the teachings of the Most High Elijah Muhammad, so we can pool our resources. Most people don't have resources to provide, so you're going to show up to a organization or community and have nothing but sweat equity to provide. So that means you become more of a liability to any organization if you don't have anything to provide. So once we get established in any of these programs with hard labor, hard skills, and we become useful and valuable to our environment, and then we purchase some property, have real estate, then we can create a company backed by that, with that person's skills. We create a company. Now we have actual resources to pool. You say, okay, well, I work with water, you work with carpentry, he works with electricity, plumbing. Then we get together and establish a real company that will do great for our community. And we're focusing on freedom and independence. So once we understand, there's certain aspects I'm not gonna go into right now. I think that's enough instructions for today. And when it comes to this plan, when we are talking about pooling our resources, it's not just dollar bills. Matter of fact, dollar bills is probably the last level of resources if there's no plan or intention in place. When we focus on freedom and independence, if we want to separate from this system, we also have to learn how to separate from the dollar and learn to value real estate, learn to value real resources. Like we talked about water, sun, food, skills. Nowhere in there did I mention money. Although those skills are amongst the most valuable on the planet, we have collectively have just been tricked and deceived to thinking that entertainment is more valuable than skills, because the system of white supremacy has took it upon themselves to pay entertainers more to distract us rather than paying. Why would a rapper get paid more than a teacher? Why would an actor get paid more than somebody who knows how to fix the electricity? Why would a basketball player get paid more than somebody who knows how to build a house? What? That does not make sense at all. We have a group of people who are made to teach the youth, and they get paid less than somebody who is dribbling a ball, throwing a ball, singing, acting, rapping, and any of these things. What type of sense does that make? It makes no sense. In other countries who are looking at the United States, they're like, that don't make no sense either. That's not a way that original people operate. You can see what's most valuable to us across the planet. What was most valuable to the Moors that brought the Europeans out of the dark ages, they didn't go and teach them basketball, and they didn't go and teach them football and soccer and teach them entertainment. No, they taught them how to read, how to do mathematics, how to do science, how to have indoor plumbing, and how to build a house for themselves. That's our instructions. That's the what we need to focus. That's what's most important today. None of this other stuff that's going on, and that's what's going to get us to separate from this system. When we start to realize that even if they pay you a lot of money, you're still not valuable to us as a society. Matter of fact, you become more of a liability because you using your platform and your person to distract us from what's really important. And so this small aspect of the total plan at hand, it's interdependent. There's so many different areas that I don't want to overload too much online. uh I do want to work with other people who are interested in independence, interested in freedom, interested in doing something better for self. um I don't want to waste time. We living in a heavy time right now. Things are getting out of hand, and so I want to work with people who are serious and looking for proper planning. I don't want people who are looking for. I don't want to work with anybody who's looking for immediate gratification and something easy and simple, or somebody who's looking to take advantage. That's not the way that original people operate. Original people operate becoming independent as an individual and then interdependent within our community and as a family. I want to be able to see, can you take care of your family? How can you how can I expect that you take care of my family if I can't see that you taking care of your family? That's what we need to be able to that's the time that we have to operate on today. That's how you can we live in a day of discernment, the day of judgment. We to utilize the teachings of Allah, God, and that's how we can learn to get along with one another, utilizing those laws, the laws of God. Okay? We want to be guided to the straight path. So, with that being said, I'm going to close the book on that. Um, and then we're going to get into the book, An Invincible Truth by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And just a friendly reminder, because we are subjected at this day and time to a spiritual war, we're subjected to a spiritual war which has physical implications. As we can see, the spiritual war that's being uh, carried out today, people are physically dying, as we can see with Trump being there was an attempt on his life, and then real people died as a result of that attempt, whether it be the person. Now, I don't know if you believe is real or not, but in warfare, especially, appearances are what's more important, not the truth. And so I'm not saying that we should be more focused on our appearances. What I am saying is, if we understand that appearances are more important than the truth when it comes to deception, that's why the magicians that do the sleight of hand, they're more important, they're more focused on what it appears like rather than what it actually is. So it don't matter if it was a real uh uh bullet, if it was really shot, if it was a real attempt, or if it was staged, it's fake. If it was fake, we should even be more concerned, because that means that there's an intent. If it was real, we could say, well, somebody tried to kill him. If it was fake, then now we don't know. Was it Trump who faked it? Was it Democrats who faked it? Why would they fake it? What's the intent? And so what we should be more focused on is, what was the intent of the situation? And the only thing that's going to be a result is civil war. That's what we're led to. Now, I will tell you this. If we are using our foresight and we say, okay, the truth of the matter is, the simple fact that that person failed in the assassination, Trump has now become a superstar. If he gets uh, uh, elected, people are saying it's inevitable. If he gets into that position and he establishes the Project 2025, which basically is consolidating his power, giving him uh, basically power to make decisions as the authority, almost as a sovereign ruler, we know as a king, giving him that authority. The only thing that's going to keep the country from going into war, a civil war, is some form of productivity. So he's going to have to either stimulate the economy by giving support to entrepreneurs, or welcome to World War III. We are in the military industrial complex. So that's the things that we have to look forward to. And one hand will wash the other, especially in the United States of America. That's just how things operate. So just get prepared for that. We're in a heavy time. So we already know that the one thing that America is dependent on to stimulate its economy, to make sure everybody gets paid, is war. That's the one thing that not only keeps people from being paid, but war also keeps the camaraderie together. It keeps the American patriot from stop wanting to kill each other. War will unite the Democrat and the Republic if they are fighting a foreign power. If they get into World War III, you can forget about quote unquote civil war in the beginning. It's going to stimulate the economy. So people are going to get back to work. So again, those of us who are interested in independence, that will be a time for us to focus. Stop getting so distracted and focused on entertainment, and stop focusing on all this stuff that's going on in society. Stop getting distracted. We need to focus and submit. It must happen. We must get together and make sure that we're working together to produce and gather as many resources as we can, because it's only a matter of time after the economy is stimulated from war, a foreign war. After the production has stopped, it's coming right back to the states, the continents of the United States. It's so one is going to happen whether or not it happens first or second. If God is merciful, we have enough time to prepare to where there's going to be a World War III that's going to stimulate the economy, and it's going to allow us to generate some resources for ourselves. If it's time for judgment to be taken out, if that time is now, then civil war is on the horizon. Either way, it's inevitable. So what we pray is that we have enough time to get our affairs in order, to get things together, start working together for righteousness, because there's no way that the United States of America is going to be able to avoid destruction. It's all throughout history. God is a merciful God. If God was to allow the United States to remain living after all the death and destruction they've caused across the face of the planet Earth, God would not be a just God. What about all the native, indigenous, and aboriginal people across the face of the planet Earth who have been faced with such devilishment and wickedness? What about their justice? So God would not be a righteous God if he allowed for that to continue um, in the way that it's been continuing. There has to be justice, and it's only a matter of time. And so it's for us, again, focusing on our responsibility. We don't want to be so distracted on what's going on in society. It's our responsibility to stay focused, to generate our resources and get as many hard skills so that we become so valuable that we're irreplaceable in our communities. And so the point of that being said is, because we know we're in a spiritual war that has physical implications, we want to have the most invincible weapon at our disposal. And obviously, we know that guns are not invincible. No amount of swords and all that is not invincible. We know that collectively as a people, we don't manufacture our own weapons. So that means if we were to buy guns, then we'd have to depend on the same system that we want to fight with to get the ammunition. We already know all of that. So instead of fighting the war that they expect, we have to fight the war that they're incapable of fighting. We know as original people that they don't have the same, talk about the system of white supremacy. They don't have the same spiritual powers and the same soul connection that we have. It's outside of their capacity. It's outside of their nature. If they did have it in their nature, they would not have destroyed the planet. So we obviously know that these powers that God has as his disposal, whether it be the powers of the rain, sleet, snow, hail, earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, tsunamis, all of these things that God has at his disposal, he's waiting to let loose on the planet. As soon as we get our affairs in order, we work together and we become that magnetized power that will put everything else into cause so that we can see the effect into this day and time. Praise due to the law. So what we want is an invincible power. We want an invincible truth. We want an invincible weapon. We don't want to be dependent on the steel that Yaqub has been playing with, them guns and bullets that the white supremacy has used. We want an invincible weapon, and the invincible weapon that we have at our disposal is our submittance to Allah, God, and our truth. And here we have what's called the invincible truth. And so I want to remind us of the back of this book here. And it says here, God has given to me a very strong and invincible truth that will defend, protect, and prevent you from falling victim to the arch deceiver. Falling victim to the arch deceiver. So if we're in a war and we're a victim of warfare, one of the tools that the our opponent is using against us is deception, and we don't want to be deceived. That's the same thing we see about this whole Trump assassination attempt. We being deceived. We don't know whether it was real. We don't know if it was fake. We don't know what's going on, and so that means that we're being deceived. Well, the only way that we can not fall victim to that deception is by separating from it and saying that has nothing to do with me. I'm not being desensitized to the death of a human being. I feel terrible emotionally that people are trying to kill each other, but I don't want to participate. And I'm going to be so focused on the truth that I'm not going to even fall victim to the lies. And that's this truth right here. It says here, we don't want to fall victim to the arch deceiver. Most Elijah Muhammad says, read these articles and treasure them. They are your life. Ignore them and it is your death. Your brother Elijah Muhammad, messenger of Allah to you all. So here it says, these in containing this truth, this invisible truth, is our life. If we don't want to focus on the truth, then we'll be caught up into the lies. We get caught up into the deception. We don't know what's going on, and that confusion will be our death. And Allah is not the confusion. The God is not the author of confusion. So God wants clarity for us. God wants us to know right from wrong, and he wants us to see the clear and righteous path. And that's the clear and righteous path that I want to be on. I don't want to be subjected to confusion. I don't want to be surrounded in an environment where I don't know what's right for wrong. I don't know if that's a woman or if that's a man. And I got to teach my children that there's more than one gender. I don't want to be subjected to that confusion. I want to be clear about my intent. I want to be clear about my path and be clear about the result that I want to bring into fruition. We want to have our own. We don't want to be subjected to wicked living anymore. I want to have at my disposal an invincible truth. And that's what we have here, an invincible truth by the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So it says here, Holy Quran and Bible continue. So last week we spoke on the Holy Quran and Bible. We're going into the book called An Invincible Truth. Oh, here. An Invincible Truth by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So it says, the poison book, and the enemies of black mankind who accuse the righteous daily of being other than righteous, then charge me and my followers with teaching hatred. It says the poison book. So that's the a lot of us don't know that the quote unquote Bible that we read here, the Bible, has been tampered with by the Roman Catholic Church. So every year or so, they go in and they start to change the words to suit their political interests. You know, just recently, the Pope Francis just allowed his um, his followers or the bishops or preachers and pastors to bless same-sex marriage in their church. And so now that that has been allowed, it just goes to show that they have the power to start tampering with, scripture. And so that's why the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad has been teaching us that it's the poison book. We do believe that there's truth in it, but we also know that the um, Catholic Church has been allowed to make changes, and that's why there's so many different versions. You have the King James version, the New International version, and different versions like that, rather than the original text. So it says the poison book and the enemies of black mankind. Notice here it says black mankind. I want to put emphasis on black and not so much mankind, but on black, meaning original. So it's the original man and woman that we want to focus on, not just the quote unquote so-called Negro in the hills of North America, but the original man and woman across the planet. It's our responsibility, our job to work collectively what we know is righteous. So it says here, the enemies of the black people who accuse the righteous daily of being other than righteous, then charge me and my followers with teaching hatred. Overlook the hatred taught by others. According to the Bible in Luke 14:26, no man could be his disciple unless he hate his father, mother, children, brethren, and sisters, even his own life. It's also in Luke. I'm pretty sure many of us have heard that scripture before where it says, no man, talking about Jesus. Jesus said, no man can be my disciple unless he hate his father, mother, children, brethren, and sisters, even his own life. Now, I want to bring clarity to us today on what that, there's a lot of confusion surrounding that particular verse. And so what that verse means, it's not a literal sense of you have to hate your mothers and your sisters. What it is teaching us, like we spoke on before, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches 100% dissatisfaction brings about 100% change. And so if we can give the word hate a synonym, if we can define the word hate and give it a synonym of dissatisfaction, hate and dissatisfaction, hate and 100% dissatisfaction would be synonymous. So hate would be synonymous with 100% dissatisfaction. They will be interchangeable. And so here it says, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches 100% dissatisfaction brings about 100% change. And so here in Luke 14:26, where Jesus is teaching, no man could be his disciple. Well, we understand that Jesus wanted to bring about 100% change. That was his intention. He was not able to do that, but that was his intention, to bring about a 100% change. And so in order to be Jesus's disciple, to bring about that 100% change within yourself, it says even his own life, you have to be 100% dissatisfied or hate your environment. You have to be 100% dissatisfied with yourself and everything that you're faced with in your environment. You have to be dissatisfied with your father, dissatisfied with your mother, your children, your brethren and sisters, and your own life. Dissatisfied in a sense that you want better and you want more, and you're not happy with the condition that we're faced with today collectively. That's what that means. And so there's a lot of confusion around that. And so we wanted to have clarity today. It says here, there are many people, and especially my people, saying that they love everyone. That's something else that we want to always talk about. Oh, I love everybody. Every black preacher and pastor in the United States says, oh, we got to love everybody. Jesus said, love everybody. It says here, one who loves everyone is not a true lover of anyone, not even himself or herself. Listen to this mathematics. If a righteous person loves an unrighteous person, he or she is also unrighteous. Who could trust one who loves everyone? That means if you loved everybody and you treated everybody the same, nobody could trust you because you would treat the person who did wrong the same to you would treat them the same as the victim. You would be neutral in all situations, and that's not justice. God is not neutral in all situations. That's not justice. God is the just judge. So some people are condemned to death for their actions. That's mathematics, that's science, and that's righteousness. It says here, if a righteous person, or it says, who could trust one who loves everyone? Jesus could not have loved his enemies, the white race, and died that they may be saved with his knowledge, or that people being the children of the devil, John 8:44, and guilty of persecuting and killing the prophets of Allah. That's not right. How could Jesus have love for such people who were bent upon killing Jesus himself and had lied and caused bloodshed in paradise 4,000 years before Jesus was born? Could God himself be so weak that he couldn't produce a righteous nation? And that's where we are today. We want to produce a righteous nation. We want to be one with the righteous nation, but was able to produce a righteous son without the agency of man, and then had to sacrifice his righteous son to the delight of his enemies to bring about a reconciliation between him and his enemies. That doesn't sound like mathematics. That sounds like deception. This same enemy who had raised hell in heaven, upset the peace there and on earth, put angel against angel, sent them to war against each other, divided and scattered the holy people throughout the earth, and still doing the same today, but were so loved by God and his son, Jesus, that they can't give this race of enemies up to be destroyed for their evils? Oh, how you have and still gravely misunderstand the scriptures. This is what happens when you start tampering with the word of God. Things don't start to make sense. They don't add up. You got to leave things alone so that people have the independence to find truth for themselves. It says the only people whom God will give a son's life so they may be reconciled is the American so-called Negroes. They are the ones who have sinned by following this race of people, the man of sin, without knowledge of either. We're the only ones who get mercy because we didn't know right from wrong. We were made slaves. We didn't have the capacity to make decisions on our own. We don't control or have ownership of anything on this planet as of right now. So Allah, God is giving us mercy in time, but our time is going to be up just like theirs. So as this time coming up, I'm saying that one thing has to happen when it comes to the economy. It has to be stimulated one way or the other. So we have to get together and be productive so that we can save ourselves. It is useless to think otherwise. We are the only people who left our own native country to follow strangers, the white race, and become trapped by them for the past 400 years. And now we must have some place, a country to ourselves, like other nations, to survive. The entire earth belongs to the black man. The entire earth belongs to the black man. Again, I'm reminding us that black is interchangeable with original, indigenous, native, and aboriginal. The word black has been so demonized in our minds, and so nobody else on the planet wants to be called black. Even ourselves, we don't want to be called black because we think it's synonymous with negro, and the root of negro in Spanish, negro meaning black, and the Latin root of negro is necro, meaning dead. So we don't want to be associated with that. But the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that black is the origin, is the essence from which all life and all creation comes from, the original origin. If God said, let there be light in the beginning, then darkness would have existed first. And so that is where we come in. We are the original, the first that existed before light. So that's what it means. That's what it means to be black. That's what it means to be black. Sister said light from dark. Exactly. Exactly. The darkness is so powerful that not only could you produce light from it, but you could produce everything in creation. So, yes, that is us, the black man and woman, the original man and woman on the face of the planet Earth. We are so powerful that you could get anything in creation from us. We have within our DNA the capacity to bring anything that we want into fruition, but we have to focus and we have to get our priorities in order. Stop being so focused and distracted on entertainment. We use so much of our influence to be entertaining that we forget to be rulers and royal and important and productive and pillars and leaders. So it says here, the entire earth belongs to the original man and woman. Shouldn't there be enough of it for you and me to live on independently? This, the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, is widening our spectrum, where he's widening our horizons. That's the whole teachings. What's the total? It says here there are 57,255,000 square miles of land out of water on it, and 29 million square miles of that is producing land. So he's giving us a permission to explore our planet so that we can produce something for ourselves. It says 17 million of us from slavery should not rest until we are really free and on our own. That's what we need to get into today. If we have, if this country is going to get into uh, um, a foreign war, a World War III, and that's going to stimulate the economy, we got to get to work. Not so that we can help the country win, but so that we have something when the country falls that we can call our own. It is sheer ignorance for us as a nation in such number to be satisfied with anything less. But we can never be a free and recognized people until we give back or drop our slave masters' names, their religion, and churches. I must keep repeating this to you because these are your invisible chains of slavery that are and will hold you more securely as a slave than visible chains. Everything loves its own kind. The fowls of the air after its kind, the beasts and animals, all by nature and after their own kind. It is now very disgraceful for our people to be imitating or copying our slave masters and our women trying to look like them and paint with paint and dye. Also, to make clear, imitating them not only in look and imagery, but anytime we get a little bit of money, don't we want to imitate them in their spending habits? As soon as we get some money, don't we want to imitate them in the things that they find valuable and important? Why don't we go within ourselves and stop thinking like so-called Negroes and niggas from the hood and trying to get all shiny, and that's what we want to put our money in? Why don't we invest in what is important and having infrastructure, having our own water, having our own electricity, having our own sustainable energy? These are the things that are most important. I seen a sister on Instagram. She went to Africa and developed her own mining company to extract the gold. It's one of the most powerful things I've seen our people do. You know, that is what we need for separation. That's what we need to do. Now, obviously, I don't agree with the practices that the Caucasians and Europeans do, extracting the minerals from other countries to bring it to the United States to keep our people in slavery and oppressed and continue to enrich themselves. I don't believe in that, but I do believe in working with other countries for the benefit of original people. We should have our own. We should not repeat the same methods, but we should definitely extract the same minerals and extract the same wisdom that they have learned how to do that. Once we can establish that, then we can begin to innovate and realize that some of these things we don't need to be dependent on. We don't need to be dependent on fossil fuels, things that are not sustainable. You know, brother, there's a brother, I think he's in Wisconsin or some state, and he's uh, uh, created an energy to he created an engine that runs on plastic. You know how powerful that will be for us to be able to power things on plastic. You know how uh, destructive plastic has been, and it doesn't break down, and it destroys and destroys every uh, animal and human on the planet. It doesn't break down. It has a half life of thousands and hundreds of thousands of years. So this brother was able to learn how to break it down and use it to generate some fuel. And that's the type of sustainable ways that God had created his system, his solar system, his planetary system. You think about the things that we put in our mouths, like shrimp and pig. Those are the things that have been made to keep our planet clean, but yet we eat them. That's so foolish of us to do, to eat the things that are made to clean up the planet. We surrounded. We can take a look at everywhere in our planet, and it's in dirt and filth, and we keep eating basically from the trash can and wondering why we can't get some type of clean living. Focusing back on the book, An Invincible Truth, it says here, everything loves its own calm. Educators of our people should help in reforming our women into Islam. The, re- the religion of Islam opens your eyes to self and your kind. Gaddafi. Thank you. It says the religion of Islam opens your eyes to self and your kind, and you feel and see yourself the equal of mankind for the first time. For the first time, we see ourselves as equal to the rest of the planet. That's the first time, that's in the United States, us as original people, uh, they called us colored, only gave us 3/5 of a human. And even though they say in society now, oh, that was a long time ago, they have not given us the time to understand. Thank you. They have not given us the empathy. They don't have it, but they haven't given us the empathy to realize and recognize the effects that slavery and the practice of slavery has had on us and traumatized us, that is generational, that can be passed down in our DNA. Those fears and traumas not only affected the person in that generation, but it affected every generation afterwards. So when it came to somebody getting beaten or killed, it didn't just affect the individual that witnessed it. And we can even see it today in our communities. When somebody gets murdered, it doesn't just affect the family. Everyone who hears about it is affected, because now they say, oh man, that person died. Now we have a fear. And then that fear is released chemically in our bodies. And then that fear is passed down to our generations. And so you can imagine, it wasn't that far in the past where we've been faced with these different levels of trauma across the planet. It wasn't just the so-called Negro in the United States that is faced with trauma. You got the native, the indigenous, the aboriginal people across the planet who have all faced similar levels of trauma that are unjustified. And so that is all been released in our DNA and passed on from generation to generation. And we can see that effect today. We can see the condition that people are in is this is the effect of that trauma. And so it says here, for the first time, the religion of Islam has made us equal in our own eyes. No longer do we see ourselves less than. It makes a new person of you altogether. And again, for the first time, you are in love with your people. It is a religion of unity and brings you into unity with Allah, God, and his creatures. Islam teaches heaven and hell while you live. Don't we need that? And this is true. How can one suffer hell or go to heaven after death. Our own nature is against such slavery belief. After the return of our bodies to earth, what would you have left to send to heaven or hell? The great time of a separation is now on between the righteous and the devils, black and white. But the American so called Negroes, my people, don't understand who they are or anyone else, and we must teach them regardless to the cost. Go to our temples. One may be in your city, or write me for the addresses at 5335 South Greenwood Ave, Chicago, 15, Illinois. End of article. Okay. So we have there an invincible truth relevant to today, keeping in mind this was written July 14th, 1956. Today is July 14th, 2024, exactly 68 years to the date. Excuse me. Exactly 68 years to the date. And this truth, an invincible truth, is more relevant now than ever before. So it's up to us to work together and do something for ourselves before it's too late. And that's no longer uh, a fantasy. Not saying that it ever was, but this is how we could tell that God is so merciful. Because the first time, this is in 1960, no, excuse me, 1956, where this article came out. 1956, when this article came out. And the messenger of Allah, Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, was telling us, do something for self before it's too late. And then 1975 came and he died. And all that teachings came to a test. We collectively were tested. And a lot of us failed that test. Majority of us failed that test. But the teachings remained evident. And now we can see in society where things are getting worse and worse by the day. And the fact that our first mind says, oh, it's not real, it's fake, without actually looking at the effect that it could have, regardless of whether it's real or fake. It still has deathly implications. Regardless, we are still have to know that things can and will get bad. And so we have to be able to come together and do something for self and kind each other before it's too late. And part of that thing is becoming independent of this system. You know, there are many people on this planet who does without the Caucasian rulership, who does without white supremacy. It's not far-fetched to think that we can do without European influence and European rulership, European dollars, American dollars. It's not far-fetched to think that we can do without it. And I think that we know that, and I think that we can come to terms with the true solution is doing without them and learning how to do this for ourselves. And so, with that being said, if you're interested in working together, like I said, this plan that I introduced is just a small, tiny aspect for the individual. Some of us, I know in my community here, have already executed on many of those things. So I would love to work closely with you all, not getting into the public. And so we can move forward on many of these different things, becoming free and independent of this wicked civilization. So with that being said, if there are any questions, I can take questions. Go ahead and I guess make it known that you have a question. I would love to, to have a dialogue. If there are any questions, concerns, any ways that we can contribute, help one another, any ways that I can help you, in any way, or if you have any resources available, we can pull them together. If you want to have any conversation offline, I'm more than willing and able to do so. And so I would love for us to get together and be able to do that. And if you have anything you want to share, also, now would be a good time. But if not, uh, see, there's some people here. No worries if not. It's all good. Sister said, "Thank you for sharing, and I will definitely keep these things in mind. All praise is due to Allah. It's been an honor for me to be able to share these things that are on mind. Um, I pray that they enter your mind. They have some type of effect, and you work towards bringing them into fruition. If anything I said that could benefit your thoughts, I pray they also benefit your life. Um, and I pray that just like God's intent is to bring things from His heaven onto His earth, I pray that you also allow these teachings to enter your heaven so you can bring peace and righteousness onto your earth. Um, and that is the same way that we bring
Bluetooth
children.
dis
The man
Bluetooth
and the woman
connected.
get together and they conceive of a child, and then they bring that child from one realm into this realm. I pray that these teachings will allow you to bring your heaven onto earth in that way. And so to say that maybe they might not just stay in your mind, just keep. I don't want you to just. I really appreciate uh, what you're saying. That you will definitely keep these things in mind, but I also pray that you take a step further and not just keep them in your mind, but allow them to bring them into fruition into this physical realm. Um, so no questions at the moment. I appreciate you for being here. Congratulations for making it thus far. It's been an honor to be here and share these things with you. Um, just know I'm not creating these things. These are the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And so if you do have any other questions in the future, feel free to bring them up. And just I'm thankful and I seriously hope for that as well. Blessings to you and your family. Peace and blessings. So yes, if there I see there's a few people, if there are not any other questions or comments, see there's somebody else here. Let me know if you have any questions. If not, I'll leave you as I came. In the universal understanding is the result of knowledge and its application, which is wisdom, bringing the result of peace. Universal understanding of peace, of Assalamu alaikum, or may peace be with you. Thank you.